Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're embarking on quite a fascinating journey. We're looking into one of humanity's oldest, maybe most persistent narratives.
Flood myths, they're everywhere.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this. We've been looking at some really incredible insights from the enduring promise, flood myths, and human resilience. Have you ever stopped to wonder, though, why nearly every culture on Earth seems to have a story about a massive cataclysmic flood?
It is striking, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, these are tales of just overwhelming destruction, worlds wiped clean, yet our source reminds us they endure because they tell us something essential.
Even when all seems lost, life can begin again. That core idea.
That's the one.
Hmm.
So our mission in this deep dive really is to explore why these stories have such incredible staying power across continents, millennia,
Yeah.
and what fundamental, maybe even uncomfortable truths they reveal about us, about human nature, and our remarkable capacity for recovery.
And what's truly fascinating, I think, is how these narratives just transcend boundaries you'd expect to matter. Geography, language, specific cultural paths.
Right.
They seem to speak to a shared human experience, something almost universal.
Universal, yeah.
And if we connect this to the themes in our source, especially those closing reflections, you see this consistent, powerful pattern emerge.
Okay, like what?
Well, each flood in these stories is depicted as absolutely overwhelming, far bigger than any one person or family or even a whole village could possibly resist.
So not just a bad rainy season.
No, it's existential, obliteration.
Uh,
But then, and this is key, in every single story, someone endures or
Sure.
something does. Always. Our source gives these vivid pictures, right? A family on a boat,
Noah Utnapishtim.
a wise man guided by a fish, a leader who shapes rivers with his hands. Different figures, different cultures, same outcome, endurance.
Hmm.
So this raises a really important question for us and for you listening. What does this consistent pattern, this endurance against absolute world-ending disaster, tell us about ourselves? About maybe the real meaning of resilience?
That universality is almost, mind-boggling, isn't it? It's not just a few scattered tales here and there.
Not at all.
It's like a global echo. It really suggests some kind of deep-seated archetype within our collective thinking.
It does feel that way.
But why these stories? I mean, why do tales of utter destruction resonate so profoundly? Is it just, ancient people recording actual big floods they experienced? Or is there something more symbolic, something instructional maybe, embedded in these disasters that speaks to how we face the biggest tests in life?
I think it's definitely more than just ancient weather reports, although real flood experiences probably set into them, sure.
Right.
But the sheer scale of these floods and the myths, that's absolutely crucial to their meaning. As the source really emphasizes, it's never presented as a manageable crisis.
Never something you can just, build a dike against.
Exactly. It always utterly eclipses individual strength or technology or even, organized community power. The world as they know it is literally washed away.
Wow.
And that scale, it underscores a fundamental lesson, perhaps. Certain challenges are just so immense, so overwhelming, they force humanity to confront its own profound fragility.
Okay, so it makes us face our limits.
Precisely. But then, and this is what our source highlights, that's exactly where the enduring message kicks in. Even when all seems lost, the narrative pivots. It's almost like a psychological reset button for humanity in these stories.
So it's not just about the destruction itself, then. It's more about what comes after the destruction.
So, yes.
Is the real power of these stories less about the flood and more about the promise of renewal that emerges, that little glimpse of hope?
That's a great way to put it. The promise of renewal is, in many ways, the beating heart of these myths.
The core message.
Absolutely. They're not just recounting a disaster, historical or metaphorical. They're offering a kind of framework for understanding how to move forward from utter devastation. That consistent theme, life can begin again, it isn't just a passive observation like, oh, look, something survived. It implies profound agency, a conscious will to rebuild, to reestablish life.
Agency, okay.
It's a very active form of hope, not just, blind optimism. Think about it. Everything you know is gone, yet the story insists on a new dawn. What does that demand of the survivors?
And what's interesting there, you mentioned the source phrasing.
Yeah.
It doesn't just say life will begin again, but life can begin again. That little word, can.
Yes. That's subtle but huge.
It says possibility, right?
Yeah.
Maybe even a choice. Or perhaps an immense effort required from those who make it through. It's not automatic. not just handed to them. It implies a deeper lesson about what it means to be human when facing such overwhelming odds. Does the source get into what kind of agency or choices these survivors actually make? Are there common threads in their actions beyond just, physical rebuilding?
That can is incredibly significant, you're right. It suggests survival is often an active choice, a real testament to the human spirit. The myths don't just present a miracle out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Often they show profound human effort, even if it's divinely guided or inspired. Think about the painstaking process of gathering seeds, like in some stories.
Right, saving the potential for future life.
Or the arduous journey to find new, fertile ground, or just the incredible mental fortitude required to simply believe in a future when the present is wiped out.
That belief itself is an action.
It absolutely is. This act of can is about more than just physical survival. It's about the very essence of human resilience. And our source makes this really clear. These flood myths remind us that resilience is not the absence of disaster.
That's a key point. Because I think that's a common misconception, isn't it? That being resilient means you somehow avoid hardship altogether.
Exactly. But the myths fundamentally challenge that idea. They present the ultimate hardship, the absolute wiping clean of the slate, and then show us what resilience truly means in that context.
So it's about facing the storm head on.
Not dodging it, yes.
Okay, so if resilience isn't about dodging the storm, but about how you weather it and maybe what you manage to take with you through it, then what are those critical elements? The source breaks resilience down into 3 core components, which I found incredibly insightful.
They really crystallize the message.
Yeah, especially when you look at them through the lens of these ancient stories. Let's dig into those because they feel like the real nuggets of wisdom here.
Absolutely. The source defines resilience as having 3 parts. The ability to carry memory, to protect what matters most, and to imagine tomorrow even when today has been swept away.
Memory, protection, imagination.
Exactly. Each one is vital, and they really work together. They form this kind of comprehensive blueprint for recovery. Let's start with to carry memory.
Okay.
In a world literally submerged, where everything familiar is just gone, obliterated, what memories are truly essential? We're talking about not forgetting what was, but maybe processing it, extracting the wisdom from it, letting it guide you forward.
So it's not just nostalgia for the old world.
No, not just personal nostalgia. It's about collective knowledge, maybe the oral traditions, the cultural practices, the understanding of how things worked before the deluge.
That's a profound thought. What kind of memories specifically would be carried in that kind of catastrophe? Is it remembering the world before the flood, or is it remembering the lessons from the flood itself?
Both, I think.
Does the source give examples of how these memories guided the rebuilding? Like, would it be remembering how to grow certain plants or how to build shelter? Or maybe the stories of creation and ancestry that define who you are?
Yeah, it's multifaceted. The memories carried would be both practical and spiritual or cultural.
Yeah.
Think about remembering which plants were edible in the old ecosystem.
Crucial.
Right.
Life or death.
Or construction techniques for building homes that might withstand future problems. Or, as you said, the ancestral stories that gave life meaning, that anchored their existence.
Oh.
These memories literally become the raw materials for reconstruction.
Okay.
Without them, you're truly starting from a kind of cognitive zero, devoid of context, of guidance.
And the danger, then, of not carrying that memory.
Well, the danger is precisely that an utter loss of identity, of purpose, and of the accumulated wisdom that allows for successful regeneration. It's the difference between just blindly stumbling forward and actually rebuilding with purpose. The myths, I think, implicitly argue that forgetting is a second, perhaps even more profound form of destruction.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
To forget is to lose the map for the future.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the second part. To protect what matters most. This isn't just about physical objects, right?
Yeah.
Though in some myths, it might literally be saving a pair of every animal.
Like Noah's Ark, yeah.
Or a sacred text, or specific seeds for replanting. But on a deeper level, it must be about safeguarding values, relationships, the essence of one's culture or identity. When everything is being stripped away, how do you even decide what's truly indispensable?
That's it, exactly. This component speaks to prioritization under extreme duress. When the world is ending, you are forced, absolutely forced, to confront your core values.
No room for trivialities.
None. The myths show survivors making these incredibly hard choices about what to preserve. Sometimes, yes, it's the tools for survival, the axe, the fishing net, but very often it's the intangible.
Yeah, quick.
Like the songs that define their people, the specific ceremonies that connect them to the divine or their ancestors, the ethical code that binds their community together, or the very concept of family, of kinship.
So it's about ensuring the blueprint for their society.
Yes,
Their spirituality, their way of life makes it through, not just the physical structures.
precisely. This choice reveals the true heart of their culture. It's what they believe will be essential for building a meaningful tomorrow, not just a barely livable one.
That resonates so much. It really is the ultimate test of priorities. Makes you think. In your own life, if everything were stripped away, what's the non-negotiable part you'd fight to preserve?
It's a confronting question.
It is. Is it a belief system?
Yeah.
A family bond? A particular skill or piece of knowledge? It really makes you examine personal and communal values. Okay, and finally, to imagine tomorrow, even when today has been swept away.
Mm.
This component, to me, seems the most forward-looking, and maybe the most psychologically demanding.
It absolutely is. I mean, after such unbelievable devastation, it would be easy, perhaps even seem rational, to just succumb to despair, to believe there is no tomorrow worth having.
Right, the trauma alone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But resilience, as these myths powerfully show, requires this immense act of creative will, the ability to actually envision a future, to plan to rebuild, to plant that new seed, even when the landscape is utterly barren and unrecognizable.
How do they do that?
Well, in many myths, this imagining is often guided or sparked by something, maybe a divine messenger, maybe an inner certainty, a deep faith that life will continue. It's about seeing possibility where others might only see desolation.
It's not just hoping, then.
No, it's actively constructing a vision for a new reality. Think of Noah sending out the dove that's an act of seeking confirmation for a hoped-for future. Or figures like the Sumerian Utnapishtim establishing new settlements after the flood. It's the essential first step in physical reconstruction, but it's born from mental and spiritual resolve.
Think about the sheer psychological leap that requires. I mean, after seeing everything, just wiped away, mountains changed, forests gone, homes vanished,
Yeah.
to still choose to imagine a future.
It's immense.
It feels like the ultimate act of faith, doesn't it? To look at a world that's been washed clean and not see an ending, but somehow see a new beginning, a blank canvas for something new to emerge.
A terrifying blank canvas, perhaps, but a canvas nonetheless.
Right. It's about more than just clinging to survival. It's about having the audacity, really, to dream of a better world, or at least a world, on the other side of the flood. And this maybe is what these flood myths fundamentally teach us. That humanity, though fragile, possesses this incredible, tenacious spirit. It's why they've endured for so long, isn't it? They speak to our deepest fears, but also perhaps to our most powerful innate strengths.
Indeed. These aren't just stories about water, are they? They are profound allegories about the human spirit, about perseverance.
Yeah.
They highlight that even when the forces of nature, or maybe just life circumstances, seem overwhelmingly destructive, there's an inherent drive within us, within communities, within individuals, to find a way through, to rebuild, and crucially, to imagine a future.
A powerful lesson.
It truly is a powerful lesson in collective memory, in defining individual purpose, and harnessing the collective will to thrive, not just survive. These myths are ancient wisdom, really, offering a kind of timeless guide for navigating the inevitable floods that life brings, whether they're personal or collective. They remind us that the human story is fundamentally one of continuous renewal. So if we synthesize the key takeaways from our deep dive today, pulling directly from the source's closing reflections, these flood myths offer us this really profound definition of resilience.
Let's recap that.
Okay. It's not the absence of disaster, that's crucial. But it is the ability, first, to carry memory, to learn from the past, remember what defines us. Second, to protect what matters most, safeguarding our core values, our essential connections when all else is lost. And third, finally, to imagine tomorrow, to actively envision a new beginning, even when today has been utterly swept away.
Memory, protection, imagination.
Exactly. And think about that for a moment. It's not about avoiding the storm, is it? It's about what you choose to carry through it and the vision you hold, however fragile, for the other side.
So what does this all mean for you, listening now? Navigating the floods, big or small, in your own life. Imagine those waters receding. The air grows calm. Birds circle above the quiet earth.
That imagery from the source is powerful.
It really is, isn't it? And somewhere, maybe just barely visible, a sprig of green breaks the surface. A quiet, resolute promise that life does go on. So in your own life, when you face an overwhelming flood, Maybe it's a personal setback, a professional challenge, a global crisis, anything that feels like it's sweeping everything away. Ask yourself, what memory do you carry forward? What part of yourself, what value, what connection do you protect as truly indispensable? And what sprig of green do you dare to imagine breaking the surface for tomorrow?
That's the heart of it.
Humanity, though fragile, endures. And in that enduring spirit, that tenacious, sometimes illogical will to rebuild and renew, well, therein lies the heart of every flood story ever told.
Welcome to the deep dive, where we sift through, stacks of sources to find those nuggets of insight that really help make sense of things. Today, we're heading back to ancient Rome. A specific moment, really, that could have been the end. But instead, it became a blueprint for something totally new. Try to picture it. Rome, way back, midsummer evening, settling in. You've got the smell of wood smoke, baking bread, maybe that faint salt tang from the Tiber. It's described as a living maze, right? Timber balconies leaning over these narrow, winding lanes, laundry lines strung up everywhere, oil lamps starting to glow in doorways.
And you hear things, too, the low murmur from taverns, maybe a musician somewhere testing a pipe.
Yeah, bakers are still up, feeding their ovens, that constant rhythm. And the Tiber River just sliding past, dark and steady. The city feels, well, completely unaware.
Totally oblivious to what's about to unfold.
Because then it starts, and not with some big explosion, but quietly. Almost too quietly.
Yeah, the sources point to something mundane. A lantern tips over, maybe near the Circus Maximus.
Or a brazier left smoldering. Could be anything, really.
And then this hot, dry wind comes along, picks up just a tiny spark, maybe from a stall in that Circus Maximus area.
Carries it across a lane, and it lands on a thatched roof. Simple as that.
At first, it's probably just a flicker. A little orange bloom, something you'd think could be put out easily.
But Rome, well, the way it was built.
Yeah.
Fast, not exactly planned for safety.
Exactly. Buildings crammed together, sometimes sharing walls, lots of timber, beams creaking. It was built for density, not fire resistance.
So that little spark finds plenty to feed on, and boom, it becomes a blaze. So our mission here in this deep dive, it isn't just to talk about the destruction of the Great Fire. I mean, it was massive, scarred the Eternal City terribly. No, we want to unpack the story of what happened next. How Rome didn't just rebuild, but how it used the disaster to learn, to implement these revolutionary ideas in urban planning.
And showed this incredible human resilience that, frankly, still speaks to us today.
Right. We're going to discover how a city that was basically facing total ruin chose instead to, well, fundamentally redesign its own future. How disaster became this enduring legacy.
It's really striking how the accounts emphasize that quiet beginning. A normal night turning into utter chaos. It really underscores the vulnerability hidden beneath the surface of the seemingly mighty city. We think of marble and stone.
Yeah, the grand empire.
But daily life, much more fragile. Lots of timber, thatch, just waiting for something like this.
Absolutely. And when people woke up to it, it wasn't slow. It was sudden. Terrifying, clatter, shouting, just instant panic. The source gives these heartbreaking details, doesn't it? Families grabbing whatever they can, a chest of clothes, maybe a little statue of a god, a jar of olives.
Children clutching blankets. You could just picture the frantic scenes, people trying to force doors swollen shut by the heat.
And that image of the baker sticking his long peel into the oven as if he could somehow push back this wall of fire.
It shows the futility, doesn't
Yeah.
it? What can one person do against that?
Nothing. It cannot.
And it wasn't just the start. The fire itself was relentless. That wind.
Became its ally.
Exactly. Pushing embers everywhere, down alleys, across courtyards, lifting them over walls onto roofs far away.
It wasn't contained at all. It just spread. Crawling under doors, roaring up stairwells.
Like a monster consuming the city. And that detail about the bronze shop bell.
Oh, yeah. Ringing by itself, heated until it warps and sings this sad, thin note. Chilling.
Really brings home the destruction of everyday life. And it lasted, not hours, days.
9 days. With breaks, apparently, but then flaring up again.
9 days of that. It really makes you think about urban design or the lack of it and how it can turn an incident into a full-blown catastrophe.
Imagine living through that. 9 days of terror. And then the aftermath, when the smoke clears.
The city is just scarred beyond recognition.
Temples gutted. Marketplaces turned to heaps of charcoal. Even the big marble houses of the rich.
Roofless, hollow shells, columns blackened, just skeletons.
And the ordinary shops, the homes of craftspeople, just gone, vanished.
leaving thousands and thousands of people as refugees,
Right, crowding onto the campus marshes, that big open field outside the walls.
usually used for drills, assemblies. Now it's this sprawling refugee camp.
People building makeshift shelters, huddling together, waiting, reaping, praying. It's, yeah, a city brought to its knees.
Absolutely. And that devastation, it forces this huge question: what now? What do you do after that kind of loss? Our source brings up the Nero story, of course. The emperor supposedly watching from a tower, playing his lyre.
Right, the famous fiddling while Rome burned tale, though the source is careful, says, some sources say. True or slander, who knows?
And honestly, whether it's true or not, it kind of misses the main point. What really mattered was what came after.
Exactly. The real question wasn't Nero's reaction during the fire, but Rome's reaction after. Would it just give up, become ruins?
Or would it rise again? Would it redefine itself? That was a historical turning point.
So that's the crucial moment. How did they start? Was it all top-down orders from the emperor, or did it start smaller?
It was definitely both, eventually. But the initial spark of recovery, that came from ordinary people. Thousands of ordinary hands, as the source puts it.
Just getting started.
Yeah, immediately. Clearing rubble, salvaging usable bricks, sweeping streets. There was this incredible, almost instinctive community effort.
People helping each other out.
Absolutely. Neighbors shared food, strangers shared tools. It shows that basic human drive to rebuild, to support each other when things fall apart. It wasn't waiting for orders, it was just doing what needed to be done.
That makes sense. That immediate grassroots action creates momentum. But you said there was a leadership element too. How did they step in?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. The city leaders, whoever they were, Nero or his administration, they recognized something crucial. Just cleaning up and letting people rebuild however they wanted, that would just lead to the same problem happening again.
Ah, okay. So rebuilding couldn't just be random.
Exactly. It could not be left to chance. This is where intention comes in. They realized they had to learn from this.
Plans were drawn, rules were written. Out of fire came lessons. I like that phrasing.
It marks the shift, doesn't it? From just reacting to being proactive. They didn't just aim to replace what was lost. They aimed to build something better, safer, a truly resilient future.
Okay, let's dig into that. This is the core of the transformation, right?
Yeah.
Rome moving from reacting to disaster to this incredible, intentional urban planning. What was the first big lesson, the most obvious vulnerability they tackled?
Space, or rather, the lack of it. The sheer density and tangled layout of the old city was disaster fuel. So lesson one was fundamentally about space for safety.
Compared to the old Rome, those narrow lanes barely wide enough for two carts?
Exactly. Buildings jammed right up against each other. The new vision was the opposite. Streets had to be widened, alleys straightened.
And open courtyards.
Absolutely critical. Leaving planned open spaces between buildings. This wasn't just about making it look nicer or easier to get around. It was a fire safety strategy.
It sounds almost like urban planning as preventative medicine.
That's a great way to put it. For centuries, cities just grew organically, dense and tangled. Rome, after the fire, became maybe the first large-scale attempt at engineering breathing room into a city.
Architecting safety. That's radical for the time.
Totally radical. The goal was clear. The new city would breathe, and in breathing, resist fire.
Wow. Just creating space as a primary defense. So simple, yet so profound. Okay, if space was lesson one, what was the next big shift in rebuilding this safer Rome? What about the actual buildings?
That brings us straight to lesson two. Material matters. The old city's reliance on timber and thatch. Well, it was basically kindling waiting for a spark.
So they changed the building codes.
Drastically. The new rules mandated using fire-resistant materials, primarily brick and concrete with tiled roofs and stone lintels.
Wood was still used, presumably.
Oh, sure, wood still had its place, but it was regulated. The idea was not where it could doom entire neighborhoods, like before. It was about controlling the risk.
So proactive fire prevention through building regulations. That's a huge step.
It really is.
Yeah.
A regulatory innovation born from disaster. And then there's the clever Roman touch. The porticos.
The covered walkways.
Exactly. They lined the wider streets. Yes, they sheltered people from sun and rain, which was nice.
But they had another purpose.
A crucial one. They acted as fire breaks. These sturdy corridors of stone could help stop a fire from spreading block to block.
That's brilliant. Integrating safety into public architecture itself. Not just individual buildings, but the whole streetscape.
It was a holistic approach. Space, materials, and then the third leg of the stool.
Water. Has to be water.
Absolutely. Lesson three. Water as a lifeline in preparedness. You can have space and brick walls, but you still need to fight fires that start.
So the aqueducts,
Repaired, definitely.
Yeah.
Extended, too. But critically, they rethought the distribution. Fountains weren't just decorative anymore. They became lifelines, strategically placed for easy access.
and local storage.
Yes, cisterns were built into courtyards. The goal was decentralization. Every district would have its sources so that no bucket line would ever run dry again.
Making water readily available everywhere, not just centrally. That's smart.
Monumental shift in preparedness. And alongside that, they strengthened the vigils.
Rome's fire brigade.
Right, the dedicated corps of firefighters and night watchmen. They got better training, better equipment, more organized to respond quickly. It became a real civic institution focused on prevention and response.
It all sounds incredibly well thought out, especially back then. But surely implementing all this wasn't easy. Any resistance or unexpected problems?
Oh, absolutely. You're right to ask. Grand plans always hit snags. Widening streets, creating courtyards, that meant acquiring land.
Displacing people, maybe? Tearing down structures that hadn't even burned.
Exactly. And the new building codes. Brick and concrete cost more than timber and thatch. Different skills were needed. That would have been a burden for many people.
So even with a clear need, there's always that human element. Cost, disruption, attachment to the old ways.
Always. It shows that transformation, even necessary transformation, is complex. It impacts real lives in ways that aren't always simple.
Okay, so the city is physically being rebuilt. Stronger, safer. But what about the people? Rebuilding doesn't just erase the trauma, right? The source mentions people walking the footprints of their old homes, touching charred hearths. The memory must have been so raw.
Incredibly raw. You can't just erase that level of loss and fear. The grief was real, profound. People remembered the sounds, the smells, the feeling of homes that were simply gone.
But then it says grief gave way, slowly, to habit. That feels very true to human nature.
It's such a powerful phrase. It captures that slow, almost unconscious shift. The wounds were there, but life has to go on. You have to work, eat, survive.
So the act of rebuilding itself becomes therapeutic almost.
In a way, yes. Getting back to the rhythm of daily life, setting up a market stall, firing up an oven again. It's a reassertion of normalcy, a way to engage with the present and future, even while carrying the past.
And you saw that practical rebirth happening.
Definitely. Markets were among the first things to reappear. Maybe under tents initially, but then in proper new stalls along those wider streets.
The sounds and smells of normal life returning.
Exactly. Bakers baking bread again, fishmongers shouting prices, farmers bringing in produce olives, figs, cheese, coin changing hands, life resuming.
And the soundscape changing from destruction to construction.
Yes. Workshops buzzing again, hammers on anvils, saws cutting timber, chisels shaping stone, brickmakers, masons, carpenters, painters, this huge collective effort. Rebuilding homes, yes, but also rebuilding the city's economic heartbeat.
It sounds like more than just physical rebuilding, though. What about the spirit of the community?
That's vital. It wasn't just about structures. It was about reestablishing the social and spiritual fabric. Temples were rebuilt, altars reconsecrated, rituals returned.
Bringing back that sense of order, of connection to the divine or tradition?
Precisely. Priests blessing new walls, families placing small shrines in their new homes, acts of thanksgiving for survival, prayers for the lost. Recovery had to include those intangible things, ritual, community gathering, a shared sense of meaning.
But it wasn't universally loved, right? The source mentioned some pushback.
That's an important nuance, yes. Not everyone welcomed the changes. Change is hard, even good change.
Some miss the old city.
Apparently so. Some miss the intimacy of narrow alleys, the familiar, albeit dangerous, chaos. Others resented the cost, maybe feared higher rents in the new, improved districts.
It adds realism. Progress isn't always smooth or uniformly popular. There are always different perspectives.
Absolutely, and it leads to a deeper understanding of what resilience really means. It's not just snapping back to how things were.
The source says it is about shaping the future with lessons learned.
Exactly. Rome didn't try to just recreate the old, flawed city. It used the hard-won lessons, space matters, materials matter, preparation matters, to build something fundamentally better, safer, stronger.
So resilience is active, not passive. It's bouncing forward.
Beautifully put. Bouncing forward, wiser and more capable than before.
And that forward thinking had a lasting impact, didn't it? Beyond Rome itself.
Immense impact. Those scars really did become foundations of strength. Rome's new urban planning laws and principles.
Wider streets, fire-resistant materials, accessible water.
They were studied, copied, Builders and leaders across the Roman Empire, and even later, borrowed these ideas. They saw the wisdom in planning for safety, building carefully, ensuring resources were available.
So it became a blueprint, a model for resilient cities for centuries.
It really did. It's fascinating how one massive disaster forced such a complete rethinking of how a city should function and protect itself.
It wasn't just tweaking things, it was fundamental change.
Often it's those huge challenges that force the biggest leaps forward. They make us confront vulnerabilities we'd otherwise ignore. Innovation born from necessity.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's picture that rebuilt city again. Night falls. The sounds are different.
Not the crackle of fire, but maybe the steady splash of fountains in those new stone basins. A constant reminder of that vital water.
The quiet tap of a watchman's staff on a wider, safer street. A sense of order.
Neighbors talking beneath those sturdy porticos, maybe feeling a bit more secure.
The memory of the smoke is still there, surely. A ghost in the background. But the city itself, it's alive again. Breathing easier, standing stronger.
It really is a story of determination, not despair. Resilience wasn't just about enduring the fire.
It was the active work afterwards.
Exactly. Clearing the ash, laying the new stone, and actively, consciously imagining and then building a better tomorrow. The fire had its terrible season.
But resilience had the final word.
And the eternal city endured, reborn.
So as you think about Rome's journey from this devastating fire to becoming a pioneer in urban design, here's something to consider. What fires or major challenges in our own lives, our communities, our world today could inspire us not just to rebuild, but to fundamentally rethink, to strengthen our foundations for whatever future comes next? Thank you for diving deep with us. Okay, let's try something. Close your eyes for just a second. Picture this. It's 1347. You're in a village somewhere in Europe. Pretty quiet. You know, kids playing, farmers working, church bells ringing. Life feels, well, pretty ordinary, steady. Then these ships dock. Messina, Sicily, and they're carrying something else, something more than the usual cargo.
Yeah, and that something more was Yersinia pestis, the bacterium.
Right, the bug that caused the Black Death, probably the most infamous plague, well, ever.
Absolutely infamous.
So our deep dive today, it's not just about the devastation, though. Obviously, we have to talk about that, the sheer terror of it. Our mission here is really to dig into this other story, this kind of counter-narrative. It's about resilience, surprisingly, and even societal renewal.
It is surprising, isn't it, how something so catastrophic could lead to that?
Exactly. We want to unpack how people facing what must have genuinely felt like the end of days didn't just, survive. They adapted, they innovated, they basically laid the groundwork for totally new ways of living and thinking.
Fundamentally change things.
Yeah. So by the end of this, you should hopefully get some of those aha moments. See how crisis can be a catalyst, a brutal one, but still a catalyst. And see how communities found compassion even with all the fear. And how lessons learned back then, well, they still echo. They shape the future.
They really do. Ready to jump in?
Let's do it. So the shadow arrives. Tell us about that initial outbreak, the speed of it.
It's hard to convey the sheer terror, honestly. The speed was frightening. It might start with just whispers. Someone has a fever, maybe some swelling. But those whispers turned into screams very, very quickly. You see these painful boils, the buboes, under the arms, neck, groin, large ones. Yeah. And the skin darkening, that's where the name Black Death comes from. Breathing gets shallow.
Yeah.
And death. It can come in just a couple of days.
Days, wow.
Sometimes just 2 or 3. Families just disintegrated. Whole villages went quiet. We had these accounts, descriptions of carts just piled high with bodies. And the priests trying to give last rites, they often got sick themselves and died right alongside the people they were trying to help.
And this wasn't just one place, right? It started in Messina, but it didn't stop there.
No, not at all. That's the chilling part. It spread relentlessly like like you said, a dark wave across the whole continent. Italy, then France, Spain, England, Germany, Scandinavia, all the way out to Russia.
The scale of the loss is just mind-boggling today. Can you give us a sense of the numbers? How many people actually died?
The numbers are staggering. Exact figures are tough. Historians debate them. But the general agreement, maybe 1 in every 3 Europeans dead in just a few years.
1 in 3.
And some places were hit much harder, 50% mortality, maybe even 70% in certain towns or regions.
70%?
Think about that. It wasn't just a number. It was society collapsing in real time. Imagine like half the people in your town just gone. Your family, your neighbors, leaders.
Everything grinds to a halt.
Completely. Monasteries emptied out. Fields just lay fallow. Nobody left to farm them. Markets deserted. Ships literally drifting in harbors with no crew.
It must have felt like the apocalypse.
For the survivors, absolutely. The world they knew was vanishing before their eyes. It was the end of the world, as far as they could tell.
Such a bleak picture. So,
Mm.
how does civilization even start to pick up the pieces after a blow like that? Because, like we said, despite everything, humanity did endure. And this is where it gets kind of fascinating, right? The absence.
Exactly. The sheer absence of so many people. It's tragic, of course, but it created this unforeseen leverage for those who are left.
Okay, so what did that look like on the ground for ordinary people?
Well, the changes were pretty immediate and dramatic. Think about being a peasant, a laborer before the plague. Your life's mapped out, tied to your lord, low wages, very few options under that whole feudal system.
Right.
Pretty much. Suddenly, boom, that whole setup just crumbles. Why? Because laborers are now incredibly scarce. And because they're scarce, they're suddenly in demand. High demand.
So they could ask for more money.
Not just more money. It was about real economic power. They
Mhm.
could demand better conditions, better hours. They could negotiate
That must have shaken things up.
hugely,
Yeah.
especially for feudalism. Serfs, tied to the land for generations. Suddenly, they had choices. There's all this land, nobody to work it. Lords are desperate, so what happens?
They leave.
Many just walked away. Left their lords' estates, their traditional duties, looking for better deals. Maybe in towns, maybe on other lands where they could get paid actual cash instead of just working for the lord.
A mass exodus, basically.
You could call it that.
Yeah.
It directly challenged that rigid social structure. Lords had to compete for workers now. They had to offer better terms, maybe convert labor service into rent payments. Some peasants even became free tenants.
So a disaster actually sped up social change.
Massively. It took tensions that were already simmering and just blew them wide open. It transformed the economy in ways that might have taken centuries otherwise.
Wow. So the foundations of medieval life are literally cracking.
But it wasn't just economic, right? Or social. What about culturally,
Mm-hmm.
psychologically? How did this trauma change how people saw the world or expressed themselves?
Yeah, that's a really crucial part of the story. The shifts in culture, in art, in literature, they're profound. You look at art before the plague, a lot of it is, idealized religious figures, powerful kings and nobles, very formal.
Okay.
After the plague, painters start capturing things with a new kind of intensity. Yes, saints and kings are still there, but also the fragility of everyday life and death. Much starker, more realistic portrayals of death.
Like the dance of death.
Exactly, the Dance Macabre. You see these images everywhere. Skeletons leading everyone, from popes and kings down to farmers and children in this grim parade.
A powerful message.
Very powerful. Death is the great equalizer. Doesn't matter who you are, it's universal.
And in writing, even clearer, maybe. Think of Boccaccio's Decameron. It's basically a collection of stories told by young nobles who fled Florence to escape the plague. And the stories, they're full of reflections on morality, sure, but also resilience and often, enjoying life, earthly pleasures, because existence felt so fleeting.
So not just sadness, but also a focus on living.
Absolutely. It's like sorrow sharpened their awareness of what it means to be alive, to experience things.
Interesting.
And if you zoom out, look at the bigger picture. It's hard not to see this period, as dark as it was, as planting some really important seeds for the Renaissance.
Really? How so?
Well, that incredible flowering of art, humanism, focusing on human potential and experience, it feels like it grew in a strange way out of soil that was watered by all that grief and that intense awareness of life and death.
That's a powerful way to put it. Soil watered by grief. Okay, so cultural shifts, art reflecting mortality.
Yeah.
What about just people helping people? Amidst all that fear, did you see acts of kindness? Or maybe even the beginnings of trying to understand it scientifically?
Yes, absolutely, on both counts. It's easy to imagine everyone just panicking and running, and some certainly did. But we also have records, lots of them, showing incredible resilience and kindness. Neighbors looking after each other, even at great personal risks.
That's amazing considering the fear.
It really is. And monks and nuns, especially. They're often on the front lines, caring for the sick, providing comfort, knowing full well it could cost them their own lives. Many did die.
Wow.
But you also asked about, sort of, scientific curiosity. And yeah, that's fascinating too. Medicine was, let's be honest, pretty basic back then. But you see doctors maybe wearing those famous beaked masks, stuffed with herbs they thought would protect them.
Right, the iconic image.
They started keeping detailed records. noting symptoms, observing how the disease progressed, trying to figure out what was happening, just collecting data.
Which was a big step back then.
A huge step.
Yeah.
In an age before germ theory, just observing and recording systematically was really important. It laid groundwork for later understanding.
And biologically, did anything change in people themselves?
Well, over generations, yes. What we'd now call natural selection played a role. Simply put, people who had some natural resistance were more likely to survive and pass that resistance on.
So immunity developed over time.
To some extent, yes. Later outbreaks, while still deadly, were often less ferocious than that first wave. And there are even theories about specific genetic mutations, like one called CCR5 delta 32. It seems to offer some protection against certain viruses, like HIV, and some researchers think it might have become more common in Europeans because it offered some advantage against the plague or maybe another contemporary disease.
So the plague could have literally shaped our genes.
It's a strong possibility. It shows adaptation happening on multiple levels, biological but also intellectual, as people learn from the horror.
That's incredible. So building on that learning, that accumulation of knowledge, what practical changes came out of this that maybe we still see traces of today?
One of the biggest, most lasting impacts was definitely in public health. People realized, those trade routes, they didn't just bring goods, they brought disease.
Makes sense.
So cities, especially port cities, started watching those roads much more carefully. They began implementing new measures to try and stop disease from entering. Preventative measures.
And this is where quarantine comes in, isn't it? A word we're all very familiar with now.
Precisely. Directly from this experience. The word itself, quarantine, it's from the Italian quaranta giorni.
40 days.
40 days. That was the time a ship arriving, especially if it came from somewhere plague was suspected, had to wait offshore, isolated, to see if anyone got sick before they could dock and unload.
A waiting period.
Exactly. Isolating the potentially sick, restricting movement to control disease. It was revolutionary for the time.
Did it work?
It wasn't foolproof, obviously, but it was a massive shift from just reacting after an outbreak started to actually trying to prevent it, or at least contain it. And the idea spread fast across Europe.
So a foundational public health tool born from catastrophe.
Absolutely, and it's a really powerful sign of human agency, I think. It shows people weren't just helpless victims. They observed, they learned, they acted collectively. They realized wisdom could come even from disaster.
And we still use variations of that basic idea today.
We absolutely do. The core principle remains fundamental to public health.
Okay, so let's try and bring this all together. This deep dive. It shows the Black Death was, undeniably one of the darkest times in human history. The scars were real populations slashed, villages just gone, vanished.
No question. The devastation was immense.
And yet, out of that, somehow, came this profound renewal. It wasn't quick, it wasn't easy, but it happened. Steadily.
Yeah, it really reinforces this core idea about the human spirit, doesn't it? We're fragile, yes. We get scared. But we also adapt. People learned to demand fairness in that new labor market. They found ways to create beauty, art, literature, even surrounded by death. They remembered the dead, but they also started imagining a different future.
And some places really did bounce back stronger.
Some did, definitely. Rebuilt by survivors who had new freedoms, new opportunities, new hope. It reshaped whole societies, the effects lasting for centuries.
And the memory itself became part of the culture.
Deeply embedded. In songs, carvings, those paintings we talked about, the dance macabre, it's like a whisper down through time saying, look, we've been through hell before. We were tested, and we endured.
The plague eventually passed. Humanity remained. And in that quiet afterward, in the rebuilt towns, the new songs, the books, the art, the discoveries, it feels like proof of what we have inside us.
The ability to suffer, yes, but also to grieve and then to rise again.
So maybe think about this. Resilience isn't really about pretending the loss didn't happen or forgetting it. It's about living with that loss, acknowledging it, and still finding the will to build tomorrow. What does looking back at something like the Black Death, this deep dive into the past, tell us about our own capacity right now to face the challenges of our time, the crises of our present and our future?
Imagine a city under siege, not just for days, but for weeks, even months.
Yeah.
The sky's lit up, but not with stars. It's flames. Sirens are wailing constantly, bombs falling. Every single night is just a fight for survival. And yet life somehow carries on, relentlessly. Makes you ask, what does it take? What kind of, deep resolve allows a nation not just to survive that, but to actually come out, well, stronger, in a way, steeled.
It's an incredible question.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into exactly that, a really extraordinary moment in history, the Blitz.
Mhm.
We've been looking closely at excerpts from the Blitz, British Resolve Amidst Aerial War. It's a powerful account, really captures that time when Britain stood, well, pretty much alone against Nazi Germany.
Yeah, it really does.
So our mission today is to unpack that remarkable human resilience that, define this whole lightning war period and try to understand what it really means to endure collectively.
Absolutely. That collective aspect is key.
Okay, so let's set the scene. It's September 1940. During the day, you've got Spitfires and Messerschmitts clashing over the Channel. The Battle of Britain.
Right. Desperate dogfights for air control.
But then darkness falls. And a different kind of terror arrives. You hear the drone of the Luftwaffe bombers coming across the Channel. It's this chilling sound.
Yeah, unmistakable.
And in London, the air raid sirens just cut through everything. That's the signal. The Blitz has begun. That German name, Lightning War, it really captures the suddenness, the ferocity of it all.
It does. That shock element was intentional, designed to overwhelm.
And those first raids, they were absolutely devastating. Can you even picture the visual horror?
It's hard to fully grasp.
I mean, warehouses lining the Thames, just packed with goods, igniting one after another, casting this like horrible flickering glow across the water.
Yeah, the docks especially. Key targets.
The docks, these vital arteries, just became infernos, flames shooting hundreds of feet up, and explosions ripping through crowded neighborhoods, residential areas, tearing apart homes, block after block.
Unbelievable destruction.
Yes, the sky wasn't dark. It was this sort of angry pulsing red. The smoke was so thick, it literally blotted out the stars. Just searchlights sweeping the sky, trying to find the bombers, often, without much luck.
A terrifying scene.
So as those first bombs fell, the reaction was immediate. It had to be. Families, sometimes with just minutes, scrambling underground, looking for any shelter they could find.
Right.
And maybe the most iconic image is the London Underground, the tube stations.
Oh, yes.
They transformed almost overnight, didn't they? From just transit hubs into these huge, sprawling public shelters, trying to find some safety beneath the earth.
Yeah, and what's truly fascinating there, I think, isn't just the physical shelter, though obviously that was vital. It's the social transformation that happens so quickly down there.
Right. What do you mean?
Well, people didn't just hide. They started to live there, in a way. They brought what they could, blankets, candles for a bit of light, thermoses of tea, maybe a kid's favorite toy.
Small comforts.
Exactly. And you had children learning to sleep on these hard concrete platforms with the rumble of trains, maybe still running on other lines as this sort of bizarre lullaby.
Wow.
But in that shared vulnerability, strangers started talking, sharing tea, sharing food, sharing stories, fears, even laughing sometimes. It suggests that this kind of crisis, which was meant to, isolate people psychologically.
Right. Break their spirit individually.
Precisely. It actually did the opposite in some ways. It became this catalyst for collective identity. Spontaneous communities forming under the most extreme pressure. They weren't just shelters. They were like tiny temporary societies.
That's a really powerful image. Meanwhile, above ground, while some were sheltering, others were actually running towards the danger.
Yeah, the ARP wardens, the firefighters.
Exactly. Turning the bombed-out streets into their own kind of front line.
Mm-hmm.
Through those endless nights, firefighters, wardens, they worked relentlessly, often under direct attack themselves.
Incredible bravery.
We read these accounts of pumps spraying water onto flames, leaping from building to building, threatening whole streets. Sometimes the water mains were already broken by bombs.
Making an impossible job even harder.
Yeah. Men forming human chains, passing buckets hand over hand, and women guiding the injured to first aid posts, trying to keep calm amidst the chaos.
It raises a really important question, doesn't it? How do people maintain any kind of order in that level of extreme chaos?
Right. How do you function?
The sources describe it so vividly, the sound of breaking glass, walls collapsing, that terrifying whistle of falling bombs. Yet somehow, amidst all that, there was structure.
Structure.
Yeah, structure to the human response. Hands pulling people from rubble, steady voices in the dark, giving instructions, comfort. It speaks to something immediate, almost instinctive in us, doesn't it? To protect, to assist.
By instinct for community, maybe?
Perhaps. A drive to maintain basic societal organization, even when everything around you is literally falling apart. It shows how resilient that human connection, that basic compassion can be.
Now, it's crucial to remember, this wasn't just a short, sharp shock.
No, far from it.
The duration is key here. The Blitz was relentless. London, for example, was bombed for 57 consecutive nights.
57. Just let that sink in.
Nearly 2 months straight. Night after night, sirens, bombs, shelters repeat.
Unimaginable.
And it wasn't just London bearing the brunt. The Blitz spread across Britain. The aim was also to cripple industry, break morale in other key cities.
Different targets, same terror.
You see this so starkly in places like Coventry. November 14th, 1940. A single raid lasted over 10 hours. Just unleashed this firestorm, devastated the city center.
And destroyed that magnificent medieval cathedral.
Utterly destroyed it. The scale was so immense, apparently it gave rise to that term, Coventration.
Yeah, to describe that kind of overwhelming aerial destruction.
And similarly, major ports like Liverpool, vital for supplies coming in, and industrial centers like Birmingham, making munitions and tanks, they endured relentless attacks too.
So it was a nationwide ordeal. The same nightly routine, the same fear, but also, presumably, the same endurance building up across the country.
Exactly. A nationwide demonstration of endurance.
And the human cost of this sustained assault, it was just immense. We're talking tens of thousands killed.
Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands lost their homes, their whole lives just uprooted, sometimes more than once.
Everything gone in an instant.
And when you look at that scale of loss, that devastation, you'd normally expect, well, conventional military thinking often predicts that a population would be broken, completely demoralized, maybe even ready to give up.
That was the goal, right? Psychological warfare.
Precisely. But that's just not what happened. The resilience wasn't just about, gritting your teeth and surviving. It was something more active, a resistance to psychological defeat.
No, it didn't break them. Despite all that devastation, the sources just keep showing this unbroken national will. What were some of the everyday signs of that defiance? Things that really struck you?
What's truly striking, I think, is how the ordinary rhythms of life just persisted, almost like an act of defiance in itself.
How so?
Well, newspapers kept printing, delivered every day, often reporting on the raids from the night before.
Incredible.
Milkmen doing their rounds, navigating streets full of craters and rubble to make sure people got their morning milk.
Wow.
Buses, trains, maybe rerouted because of damage. But they kept running, getting people to work. It wasn't just passive endurance. It felt like an active insistence on normality.
A quiet, stubborn defiance.
Exactly. Like saying, we won't stop living. We won't let you win that way. It showed this deep-seated belief, perhaps, that stopping normal life was handing the enemy a victory.
We all know Churchill's speeches, right? Those iconic calls to stand firm, never surrender. They're part of the legend.
Absolutely. Hugely important for morale from the top.
But it sounds like you're saying the real resilience, the bedrock, wasn't just coming from those speeches.
I think that's right. While Churchill certainly inspired, the true strength was more grassroots. It was this collective will showing up in countless small, everyday acts.
Like what? Give us some examples.
Okay, think about families. They spend a sleepless night huddled in a cold, damp shelter, bombs falling nearby, yet they still set their alarm clocks for work the next morning.
Just carry on?
Yeah. Or teachers, the morning after a really bad raid, gathering these shell-shocked kids not just for lessons, but maybe leading them in a song, trying to create just a moment of peace, of continuity.
Simple things, but profound.
Absolutely. Neighbors sharing food when rations were tight, which they always were. Helping each other patch roofs with whatever they could find. Mourning together when someone was lost. It was this shared burden, this mutual aid that created this incredibly strong social fabric.
So resilience wasn't just a government policy, it was personal.
Communal.
Deeply personal and communal. That's where the real strength lay, I think. So by the spring of 1941, after months of this, Londoners, people in other cities, they'd adapted. They'd fallen into this new, terrifying rhythm.
A grim routine.
Yeah, sirens mean danger, run for shelter, endure the night, hope for the best, and then dawn. Time for recovery.
The all clear.
Right, streets getting swept, rubble cleared away, fires put out, all before the next night likely brought it all back again. It's like this grim choreography of survival.
Constant cycle of destruction and repair.
And even with that constant threat, the ruins everywhere. Life just found this, indomitable way to carry on. It seems almost paradoxical.
In what way?
Well, humanity kept happening. People got married, sometimes in churches with broken windows. Babies were born, maybe in makeshift wards and basements. Markets reopened. Stalls set up right there among the damaged buildings. Sellers calling out their wares. Even the arts, local concerts, plays, trying to offer some escape.
It's that insistence on life, isn't it?
Exactly. Life insisting on resuming.
Which leads to a really profound question, I think. Where did hope actually come from? When so much was visibly lost, when the landscape itself was one of devastation and constant uncertainty.
Yeah, where do you find hope in that?
Well, the sources suggest hope grew, maybe stubbornly, defiantly, right there in the cracks of the destruction.
Like flowers growing through concrete.
Exactly like that. You'd literally see small, bright flowers gleaming in window boxes people had nailed to the few standing walls of a bombed-out house.
Wow. A small act of defiance.
Or children playing amongst the bomb craters, treating them like they were just new hills in a playground. The physical scars on the cities, on the people, they remained. You couldn't erase them.
No.
But the spirit, that individual and a collective will, it wasn't defeated. It seemed to draw strength from these small, persistent acts of life carrying on.
So let's circle back to the objective. The whole brutal point of the Blitz
Yeah.
was to break British morale, right? To terrorize them into surrender.
Yes, unequivocally. That was the primary strategic aim.
Given everything we've talked about, the devastation, the length of it, the psychological pressure, were there moments, according to the sources, where morale did feel genuinely close to breaking? Or was this resolve pretty constant? And ultimately, what does it tell us about whether the Luftwaffe actually succeeded?
Well, fear was constant, no doubt about it. And individuals certainly had moments of profound despair. How could they not?
Of course.
But the overwhelming evidence points towards the collective resolve holding incredibly strong, maybe even hardening as time went on. So when you zoom out and look at the Luftwaffe's main goal, shattering the British will to fight,
Did it work?
the answer seems to be a resounding no. The Blitz, in its primary strategic purpose, failed.
It backfired.
In a crucial way, yes. Instead of driving people to despair and surrender, it actually seemed to steal their morale. It forged this incredibly deep sense of shared experience, that feeling of, we're all in this together. So the people of Britain, having come through that firestorm, they carried forward not just grief, which was immense, but also this immense quiet pride, this profound sense of national unity. They faced the worst, stood together, endured, and they emerged not weaker, but arguably more determined.
So we've journeyed through those terrifying nights, those resilient mornings of the Blitz. You see this extraordinary, almost unbelievable example of human endurance, collective will.
Yeah, and this deep dive, I think it offers a really powerful, timeless lesson for all of us,
Well,
really. It's a profound reminder that true resilience isn't about not being afraid, because fear was absolutely there every single night. You'd see it on people's faces.
Right.
Instead, resilience is about the presence of resolve, despite the fear. It's about all those quiet acts of courage adding up to something huge. It's about the shared humanity that connects strangers in a crisis. And it's about that stubborn insistence of life itself, even when faced with, well, unimaginable adversity.
Okay, so as you close your eyes now, just try to imagine this.
Okay.
The hush settling over the city after the final all-clear siren has faded. The fires are out. The sky is getting pale with the first light of morning.
Mm-hmm.
You see a milkman setting bottles on a doorstep, carefully stepping over piles of debris. A woman is sweeping broken glass from the front of her shop, already thinking about how to fix the window. A child laughs. You hear this sound, maybe chasing a piece of paper blowing in the breeze. Incongruous, but beautiful. The city, scarred, yes, but defiant. It's breathing again.
Yeah.
What is that image, that picture of a community moving forward, not just despite the devastation, but through it? What does that tell you about the challenges you face in your own life, and maybe about the resolve, often untapped, that exists within all of us?